Good afternoon. Call this meeting of the Board of Commissioners to order. First item is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The next item is invocation given by Commissioner VanSyckel from Sterling Heights. Commissioner.
Thank you, Chair. Please bow your heads. Dear Lord, we are here to discuss topics that will benefit the people of our community. We want to think about how we can make life better for everyone. Give us the wisdom to make the right decisions. Help us to make these decisions based on solving the problems of your children. Be our leader during the meeting and show us the way. Give us direction and let us not think with our own selfish interest. Open our eyes to viable solutions and help make our country great. Amen.
Thank you, Commissioner VanSyckel. Need a motion to adopt the agenda.
Romano adopts the agenda.
Zinner, support.
Very good. I moved the proclamations to the end of the agenda. Normally they're up a little bit more, but I moved them to the rear of the agenda to accommodate our guests. So without objection, I need a motion that's been made and supported to adopt the agenda. Please vote.
Motion passes 11-0.
Thank you. Item 5, approval of the minutes dated April 28th, 2022. I need a motion to approve those.
Motion to approve.
Support? Support. Support by Commissioner Hall. Please vote.
Motion passes 11-0.
Thank you. Item 6 is public participation. This is the first opportunity for public participation for anyone to speak on any subject on the agenda. Following this, at the end of the meeting, there'll be an opportunity for you to speak on any subject you wish, on any topic at all. You have 3 minutes to do so. Please step forward and state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes. Anyone under public participation wants to be heard? Here's a familiar face.
Afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Vicki Wolber, 17008 Tremlett Drive, Clinton Township, Michigan, and of course I'm Deputy County Executive. You've seen me many times. I first wanted to thank you again for reconsidering and putting the 911 resolution back on the agenda today and allowing us to speak on that and to take the vote. I have spent all of my adult life for 34 years working in local government. The majority of that career has been in public safety and in grant procurement and management. My estimation is that I have handled over 100 different grant programs, each with their own requirements, probably close to 2,000 different individual projects, and close to $1 billion just in grant funds alone. As many of the board members have said themselves, I'm extremely well respected and valued in this county to my knowledge, detail, honesty, and credibility. My word is everything to me, and the others that rely upon me in this community, and I would never put them, the residents of this county, the board, or the county itself at risk or in a precarious position, especially on the use of taxpayer funds, whether general fund dollars, grant dollars, or appropriations. It has been said and discussed that some members of the board have a plan to use other funding sources rather than approve the surcharge request. Let me be clear that no such plan in any detail has been shared with the county executive's office or the sheriff's office. As to the proposed funding sources, county general funds. Of course, county general funds can be used for ComTech. They've been used in the past, and this board has been generous to us on the use of those county general funds. However, as was provided by Corporation Counsel when the board asked the questions, we cannot use county general funds for any of the other eight PSAPs. That funding is illegal. ARP funds. Here's where we are in disagreement. Members of the board are of the opinion that ARP dollars can be used for dispatch purchases. Based on my expertise, based on Steve Schmiegel's expertise, and our review of the grant guidance and rules from the Department of Treasury, we do not see any clear correlation between the use of ARP dollars and the expenditures for the dispatch centers. While the BOC may be able to appropriate the funds for these projects, it is the administration that carries this function out. If we are at a stalemate over the use of the ARP dollars and the eligibility, these projects will not move forward, and the PSAPs will still not get their funding and will remain in limbo. The last area is the ComTech fund balance. Yes, ComTech has a fund balance of approximately $3 million as of the end of March of this year. However, we are only a quarter of the way through our fiscal year, and that money will decrease over the course of this year. Further, we also have plans to use that $3 million in the fund balance. We have plans coming forward as part of the county's budget cycle this year, as well as future plans to draw down those funds. Further, the funds that we're seeking under the surcharge and the list of the items, those are not items we're going to use that $3 million for. I know that's a question about supplanting. If we did that, that would be supplanting. Again, our plans for the $3 million in our fund balance, in our minds, are technically already being used. Lastly, all three of these funding sources are one-time solutions. They do not provide any funds for future costs, and some of the solutions are for ComTech only. As has been explained before, the surcharge dollars are for all the PSAPs in the county, and the legislation that we are using for that puts that in the hands of the Board of Commissioners. They cannot go to their local municipalities and ask for their own surcharge. I'd like to thank you again for your time, and again, appreciate allowing us to come forward to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. Next, who would like to speak next on this? Any subject you'd like?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Angela Elsey, 117 South Groesbeck, Mount Clemens. I am the Dispatch Director for the Macomb County Sheriff's Office. I, as well, want to thank you all and let you know that we are very appreciative of you placing the resolution for the E911 surcharge back on today's agenda. This dedicated funding mechanism for our county's 9 PSAPs is incredibly necessary, and I ask for your consideration in support of this agenda item today. I am a county employee, and I oversee the operations at ComTech. However, I'm standing here in front of you today representing all 9 dispatch centers in Macomb County as the county's 911 coordinator and the lead on many dispatch public safety projects and initiatives. So together, we're asking for your consideration in supporting this critical public safety initiative and funding mechanism. I was the one to present the original proposal to you in March. So when the resolution is reached on today's agenda, please know that I am in the audience and available if you have any questions or seek clarification on anything. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Tony Lacey, and I'm speaking briefly today as a representation of the Southeast Regional Emergency Services Authority. When the 911 surcharge was last discussed within this body, I spoke briefly to the necessity of the surcharge as it would be Sarisa specific. While what was said then is entirely true, I believe it's important to also bring to this Commission's attention the importance of a sustainable funding source for all of the 9 PSAPs within the Macomb County going forward. As Macomb County adapts to an IP-based 911 network, certain challenges will present themselves as technology evolves. Many of these challenges will be unknown and have unknown associated costs with them. While an IP-based emergency service network has built-in redundancies, it cannot be discounted that it is a more vulnerable system. As cyber attacks further evolve, security measures to perfect 911 service delivery will also require improvement. This costs money and is largely unknown at this point. As technology evolves, so will the technology to fight it. As 911 capabilities evolve within an IP-based 911 system, the expensive costs of interface ensuring interoperability amongst PSAPs throughout the entire state or country will also be required. The question of moving forward to this IP-based network is not an option in my professional opinion, as a large portion of the country has already in transition to this network or has already moved to it and moved away from the legacy copper system. 911 capabilities that are expanded on an IP-based network will soon become the public's expectation of 911 as more progressive entities throughout the country adapt it. It is imperative that this body recognize the importance of providing 911 service that meets the public's highest expectation, and doing so requires sustainable funding for a future that is sure to have many technological challenges. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Next purchase.
Good afternoon, esteemed commissioners of Macomb County. My name is Brother Thomas Zarafa, OFM, Order of Friars Minor, Franciscan. I live in Oak Park, which is part of Oakland County, but I taught school here in Mount Clemens from 91 till 94 at the old St. Mary's School. I think some of you may remember the old building. The new building I've never been in, but I'm here to talk about the public transit presentation that you're going to hear momentarily from SMART. As a senior citizen myself, I rely on public transit to get around because I'm limited in my driving capabilities, especially at night. Because of declining eyesight and just, the things that old age offers us as we move through the life cycle. And I travel to many cities that have excellent bus and public transit service. Cleveland, Chicago, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., and Indianapolis, actually, and Cincinnati. And people of all stripes and color and ethnic and religious backgrounds take the bus in these cities. And many of these routes go right into the suburban areas of their cities as well. It's not an age thing, it's not an economic thing, it's a practical thing. The cost of auto insurance for young folks is astronomically high. And people are leaving the Detroit metro area because of the lack of public transit options. They're leaving our suburbs as well. They're not hanging around after college. They're going to these other cities that have excellent public transit. We deserve no less. Mount Clemens is a great treasure in this county. And,
You have 30 seconds.
and I would like to see more people take advantage of the wonderful things your city has to offer. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is James Piper. I reside on Lakeview Street in St. Clair Shores. I'm the president of the Macomb County Fire Chiefs Association, so I'm here today representing all of your Macomb County Fire Departments and all 9 of the PSAPs that would directly benefit from the funding that we're talking about today. I'm here to pointedly ask you to vote yes for this surcharge that's going to be discussed today. I want to remind the commissioners that Macomb County is the only county in all of Michigan that does not have its own secure funding for 911, whether millage or a surcharge like we're going to discuss today. I know there's been some talk of county funds being used in another way. I don't need to remind this board, I know you've worked on this budget. There were about, I believe it was $5 million in priorities that were unfunded this year because you just didn't have the money. That the county services about $23 million in debt service every year currently. There's no funding for this if you say we're just going to up the funding to ComTech, which only represents about 48% of the county. The ARPA funds being discussed at best are a Band-Aid for one-time use 1 year. At worst, might be illegal and an invalid use, and you risk losing the dollars for the county. It's not an option. It's not a viable option. This surcharge we're talking about today is a nominal fee. We're talking $5 a year consumption tax on cell phone usage that directly funds 911. It ensures ongoing funding year after year to continue to make sure that these 911 centers operate. 911 is the vital link to what we do in the fire department and the police department. When a panicked individual is calling and having an emergency, those professionals answer the phone, ensure the right resources get dispatched at the right time. They require funding. My own mayor likes to say that my toys cost too much. The fire department's expensive. It costs a lot for cruisers and guns and body armor for the police. 911 is not cheap either. The consoles, the training, the men and women that answer the phone are vital, and it costs money. This requires ongoing funding, and those of you who say you support police and fire cannot support police and fire if you do not support our 911 operators and telecommunicators and fund them. Those of you that say you support police and fire, if you vote no today, it's only words. You don't support us, and we won't support you. Do not forget this. Do not deny your own citizens the ongoing funding that they need. And don't just be talk, be action. I'm asking you to vote yes on the surcharge vote when it comes up. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Hey, here's a man we all recognize.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Tony Wickersham, Macomb County Sheriff. I live on Sorrel up in Bruce Township. I won't give out the numbers or I'm going to have a big party over there tonight, so I'll let them guess which house it is. I want to applaud you for putting it back on. I know I've had conversations with some of the commissioners. It's a very important topic. All I ask is you remember when it was brought back through the committee, you passed it. Through the subcommittee, it passed, and for whatever reason, when it came to full board, some votes were changed. Look in the audience. Again, the chief said it perfectly. I was going to say it. You know, do you support public safety? This is about public safety. This is the first call for help goes to those 911 dispatch centers. And we just need your support. Again, the resolution, the wording, everything that's on there is perfect. Give it a shot. Let's do it for 2 years and then put it to the vote of the people. You know, again, if you will support public safety, you'll vote yes for this. And what a better way to start off National Police Officers Week on the 15th with a yes vote and supporting public safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Wickersham. Anyone else wish to be heard?
Evening, ladies and gentlemen. Chris Kratchy, reside in Capac in Armada Township. I'm also the Armada Township Fire Chief. Armada Township at this moment does not have a contract with any PSAT. We are now entering into it because we see the value of it. On July 24th of 2021, we were with a tornado. Nobody in this room can value the quality of a high dispatch as Armada Township. Mr. Brown, you're the first elected official that walked into that room and saw our command center. We value it. We want to go forward with it. Our township has made a commitment to join. It's 10% of my operating budget. We see the value in it. I came out of the meeting when it was voted out of committee and voted and came back and told our elected officials, hey, this is great. There's a lot of talk about technology. Technology is active. It's not static. If you don't have a funding mechanism in place, it's not going to stay state-of-the-art. I mean, we all have cell phones. How long are those state-of-the-art? And the other thing I want to do is we're talking about a lot of things, but the most important thing to talk about today is that radio. Dispatch is the backbone of our service. I can show up with $1 million piece of equipment, hoses, axes, jaws of life, CPR machines, cardiac defibrillators. Nothing is more important than this $6,000 radio and the people at the other end of it that are giving me information, telling me the assets I need to respond with, what's to expect as the call is developing, what is changing. They're responsible for getting all the assets I need there, for accountability of my guys to keep them safe. state-of-the-art, having a mechanism in place is huge, and I beg of you today to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Callie Wang. I am an engineer at General Motors and transit activist with Motor City Freedom Riders. I actually work at my day job at the GM Tech Center in Warren, which is why I'm interested in coming here today. You've heard a lot about the fundamental basic infrastructure that keeps our society going, the 911, the police and fire systems. I'm here to talk about public transportation and SMART in particular as another piece of fundamental infrastructure that serves our community and keeps us going. So when I first moved here to Southeast Michigan to work for GM, I didn't own a car, and I rode the SMART bus every day to get to work. The fact is, there were always folks in the bus who relied on it. People at the tech center, the blue-collar workers, the food service workers, the janitors, everyone else keeps the tech center going, the essential workers who can't do their jobs from home. Once I got a first car payment, once I got a first paycheck, that could become a car payment. But for folks who are struggling with inflation and high fuel costs, or anyone who can't afford or can't physically drive a car, the SMART bus is their lifeline. The SMART bus helps people get around the whole county without having to purchase a car, without having to be able to physically operate it. And it's a huge lifeline for people who have no other option. You're going to hear an update on Agenda 8 on SMART. I highly encourage everyone in the Commission to remember how important public transportation is for this community and how important it is to keep it going. Whether or not you ride, you are getting value from the economic growth and opportunity that public transportation creates. If it goes away, what happens if people can't get to work anymore, if people can't go to medical appointments, if we have seniors who have their mobility greatly limited? The fact is, SMART is providing a huge service to the county and the whole region. And I implore the county commissioners to look for any ways to maintain and improve the service that we've already got. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to be heard? Who's this guy? I'm sorry, sir, you're not allowed. Just kidding.
Leon Drolette,
Gillette.
46116 Lookout Drive, Macomb Township, Michigan. It's great to be back here with the Board of Commissioners. Good to see so many familiar faces and new faces. I'm here to address the issue of the phone tax and 911 surcharge, as it's being called. I've heard those testify that we need a steady, reliable source of funding for providing a high priority service. And I do agree that public safety, if that's not, it's hard to imagine a higher priority service that we provide as elected officials than public safety. But we do have a source for funding our highest priorities, and that is our county tax. One would expect that our county taxes would be prioritized toward our highest values, our highest needs. So if public safety truly is a high priority, well, it should be a very high priority in how we assess, how we expend our existing resources. I know we've heard a number of arguments, and I'm sure we'll hear more, about the reasons why we should implement this tax. We've heard that we're the only county that doesn't. I think that's a bragging point. It says that Macomb County has prioritized public safety more than other communities because we've put it right into baked it right into our county tax base. We've also heard in the past that we needed to have this funded, and yet our past board, which I was the pleasure of serving on, found ways to fund it without raising the tax. In the past, we've done it for decades, we've a long time found ways of funding public safety without raising this tax. So I don't think this is a magical year where this is the first time we can't fund our highest priority without raising taxes. We are now living in an environment where inflation rate's 8.5%. I don't even think that covers what the inflation rate is for people on the lower end of the income spectrum. Food is up 11%. Gas is up more than 8.5%. The basic needs that people have are up higher than that 8.5%. And we have to make a decision as to we are going to be part of the problem or part of the solution? Sure, it's only an extra few bucks. Everything's always an extra few bucks. To somebody who's scraping by trying to fill their gas tank, $5 might make a difference. And if you got more than one phone at home, it's more than $5. So we have to decide, are we the board that are inflation fighters that are looking to prioritize their existing resources in a way that funds our highest priorities first? Or are we a board that contributes to the problem and raises the prices on residents, raises the prices on citizens? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anyone else wish to be heard? Treasurer. Anyone else wish to be heard? One more time, anyone wants to be heard under public participation? Seeing none, we'll close public participation. Item 7 is resolutions. We have two resolutions. First one, 7. We have two resolutions. Item 7A, which recognize the monthly service charge for E911 services of 42 cents per month per device. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the resolution.
Support Kleinfeld.
Okay. Motion made and supported. Anyone wish to speak?
I do.
Chairman Haw, Vice Chairman Haw.
Well, thank you for both of those things. The term used earlier today is, can we make decisions that benefit our community? And that was a quote. My former colleague points out that we're the only county not doing this, so therefore we should be proud of it. Him and I, when we served together, had numerous conversations like this. The difference here is there are basic needs that have all gone up. Gas, food, and inflation. That is not even debatable today. Another basic need is when that call is made and that radio is used, that these guys sitting out there know what they're running into, they know where it's at, they know how to get there quickly. Time saves lives. I pointed this out in our first discussion. My father used Roseville EMS numerous times. One time, they were just a little bit late. He made it through there, but it was by the grace of God. And I have never forgotten that. I have supported public safety, and that's what this is. This is public safety. I know we talk about a tax increase, and we have those that have said, I will never vote for a tax increase. I said this the first time we debated it, and I'll say it again. You can call it a tax increase, or you can call it supporting public safety. I don't want to hear it's a tax increase when you're talking $5. I even offered to give some people $5 if that's what it takes. The reality here is it's just not Comtech. Vicki talked to that. Our Comtech supervisor talked to that. It's dispatch centers throughout Macomb County. Every resident in Macomb County is going to be impacted one way or another by this decision. All I would ask my colleagues to think is if it saves one life, is it worth $5? And again, I'll say my former colleague and I have argued the differences between these types of issues. I have had to take many hard votes as both the mayor and a state representative, sometimes increasing taxes, sometimes decreasing taxes. For me, public safety is my #1 priority. Everyone sitting up here, I believe, is up for re-election. Chief, thank you for pointing that out. Public safety is a #1 priority. We have funded Comtech in the past. We have the experts sitting right out here saying we need additional funding. We as commissioners have to make decisions all the time. And many of our decisions we have said, where are the experts? We want to hear from the experts. Well, all I can say to my colleagues is, I think we just did. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Ha. Commissioner Song.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to thank all of you guys for being here today and sharing your feedback as well. I think the people have spoken, and I do agree with you, Commissioner Hall, that we must support public safety. So I will be supporting this resolution, and I hope that my colleagues will join me in supporting it as well. It is just $5. And yes, $5 does mean a tank of gas, but this is our safety, and we must support our police and our fire department. So I think it's important, and it's not going to put a huge dent in any of our pockets. But you know, I understand the fact that we don't want to raise prices, and we certainly don't want to push these costs onto our residents. But I think in this case, it's really important. And again, just $5 won't make a difference. And I'll take your $5, Commissioner Hall. Thank you.
I should have never said that.
Thank you, Commissioner Song. Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you, Chair. Vicky's already explained over and over and over again about using county tax dollars and how that leaves a very large majority, a very large portion of 911 out no matter what. Not only that, but we aren't being consistent as a board when we talk about that, because every time the 911 contracts and the police contracts come up, people up here ask, are these contracts covering the cost of the services? Is the county going to lose any money here? So to then turn around and say we use general funds for this purpose is being absolutely flip-flopping on what we say when those contracts come up. So, but I don't think the discussion up here has been on general fund dollars. I know there's been ARP discussion. What I do not want to do is follow the advice of commissioners that believe it's a permissible use and then find out later that it's not a permissible use and pay the price for that with the federal government. That's not a risk I'm willing to take. And it's also single-use dollars, and I've never, ever philosophically been in favor of using single dollars that come in one time for a regular expense. What is on here isn't going to be a regular long-standing expense. It was a compromise. I supported the county exec's original request, which was just to do the fee, be over and done with it the way all the other counties have. I did not win in that fight. This is a compromise. It's 2 years, and then it goes to the voters. So when I walked away from the table, I thought the reason there were a majority of votes is because we did a compromise. I heard there was a lot of discussions in the last couple of weeks about a compromise, and I was like, we already did a compromise. And everybody's saying $5. Let's put it in the real perspective. It's 42 cents a month. It's not $5 a month, and people keep saying to me it's $5 a month. No, it's 42 cents a month. So even if a household has 4 phones, what, 1 cup of coffee per month? Is that what we're talking about here? That's the way I view it, and I'm imploring commissioners. I know that commissioners run on being anti-tax, but they also run on being pro-public safety. And I have to tell you, my side of the aisle, quite frankly, is labeled as not supporting public safety on a regular basis. And I don't know about other commissioners. I don't routinely get endorsements from public safety, but I vote to support them every time they need it when it comes to equipment, because it's the right thing to do. So I am imploring everybody, if you run on both, being anti-tax and pro-public safety, and we're talking about 42 cents a month, it's an easy vote. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Kleinfeld. Commissioner Matuzik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. like my colleague, Commissioner Kleinfeld, I would have supported the first proposal, to put it on, be done with it. Public safety is critically important. I got to believe if I put 10 of my constituents in a room and asked them would they be willing to spend the 42 cents a month to know that if they're in an accident somewhere, someone can actually locate them by their cell phone. It's like that has happened to me where my OnStar went off when my airbags deployed in the middle of nowhere in Hillsdale County, and someone was there. And our residents in this county deserve that. And I don't know any other way to say that. The talk about various pots of money don't make any sense to me. We've heard over and over that it's not going to work. And in addition to that, I don't want a one pot of money where I've seen a lot I've read about a lot of commissions doing that with their recovery money. They're buying one thing. Then they have no way to support it when they've spent that money on the one thing. And we need, going forward, a system that our citizens can rely upon. So the first of the first responders, who I don't think get nearly enough respect, the first of the first responders need to be well supported, well equipped, and have the most up-to-date technology. I clearly am voting for this, and I believe when it comes up 2 years from now that the residents of this county are going to vote for this because they're going to understand how important it is and how important their safety is and how important it is to spend the money to stay abreast of the technology. And I think it's very important. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Matuzik. Commissioner Sabatini.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this would be a fix for the next 2 years, but what about if the voters do not pass this? This has already been brought to the city of Mount Clemens, and it failed there. We're going to be back in another similar situation, talking about this, trying to figure out how to get the resources in this fund that was created this year in the budget to try and solve the same problem. We have the money to solve the problems. Whether it's a disagreement in the ARC funding, that can be worked out. We've gotten our answers. The exec has gotten their answers on that department side. But long story short, we believe that we can use the ARC funding to fund this. And if not, we have the general fund dollars to simply make these contributions to this fund. We're already putting $2.1 million annually into this fund per the budget that we just approved for this year. And Vicki is correct, because I did reach out to Finance today. The fund balance as of the end of the first quarter in this fund is $3.3 million. Now, she said today that they've already have plans to spend that $3 million. I haven't heard that plan. So that's a big number. If we're spending $3 million of an $8 million expenditure fund, I think that we need to know that going into this meeting too. So I think it works both ways. Long story short is I think putting this burden on the taxpayer is just not the right decision. Yes, it's $5 annually, but if you have 5 phones, if you have a family of 5, and on top of the phones you have tablets and you have other devices, it's on every single one of those devices. So we can say it's just 42 cents a month, but cumulatively across the board, what's that true cost per household? So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Sabatini. Commissioner Zinner.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I believe one of the speakers from the audience said it was per year, and I'm glad Commissioner Kleinfeld explained it's per month. And Commissioner Sabatini explained that it's per month. To me, I think there's a problem when we have these situations with the money. We believe it's there. Commissioner Sabatini is the finance chair. He works very closely with that. He and others work very closely with the executives. And to really believe that the money is there and available to solve this problem right now, just write the check, is a bit frustrating. For commissioners here who want to support you, we need you. We know how important you are. We've all got families. We all know that anything can happen at any minute. So it is very frustrating. And with the ARP money, There's, someone may speak about that later. There's a reason that Commissioner Sabatini believes there's a reason that can be used. So that would take time for back and forth with the executives and the commissioners, unfortunately. And that's what we have, that's what you have when you have a charter government, which is what we have in Macomb County, is a charter government. I would like to not have to vote on this. I mean, I would like to not have to vote for this, but my fire chiefs in my 2 towns really want it, and I'm going to bow to their wishes. But I'm doing it, I don't want to say begrudgingly, because I do want you all to have what you need. And we all care about you. You're very, very important to us. What would we do without you? And we all know what we would do without you, and it's just not even a thought that we would want to even have. So I don't know how the vote's going to go, honestly, but if it goes against you, don't think that you're not a great priority to us for what you do for everyone in Macomb County. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Zinner. Commissioner Farrington.
Thank you, Chair. It's interesting, 42 cents versus a family of 4 would be $20 a year. So it's all the different ways we're trying to frame this. I'll remind people that the federal income tax started at 1%. Now what are you paying out of your paycheck? Once the door is open, it's really hard to close it. But the biggest thing I want to say is I really take umbrage with the speaker that said, if you don't do this, you don't support us. I would disagree. I was a former legislator of the year by the Fraternal Order of Police. I am voting no today. Not because I don't respect what you do, because I very much do. What I don't like is putting a tax on it when we have the money in the budget. I'll be the first one to vote yes. I have no problem with that. There's no reason to put another tax onto the people, and it's minimal, I get it. But when inflation is as high as it is, when people can't fill their tank to get to work, and we're gonna put another tax on them right now, it's not right. So I will be the first one to allocate and prioritize the budget money, because I do respect the job you do, and I have the credentials in the past to show that. So I take umbrage with the fact that, you know, along with the veiled threat that we won't support you, and I'm not really sure quite that meant, but I sure didn't like hearing it from a public servant. But with that said, bring it to the, you know, if the county executive brings it to the budget, do it right away, and we have looked into other options where we can give the grants for a lot of the stuff at the local level. I know my city, Utica, supports this. And I want to get them what they need. I just don't support it this way. When we can do it, if it's truly a priority, like the county says it is, put it in the budget like every other priority that we have. It's only $3 million when we passed the largest budget in the history of this county this year. $1 billion, and you're telling me you can't put $3 million aside for this? Shame on all of us. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Farrington. Commissioner Wallace.
Thank you, Chair. This is complicated, in my opinion. I know some of you would say it's not. I hear everything that you all are saying. I hear it, and because it's in here, I'm sure you all know that the city of Mount Clemens did not support it. I've gotten many calls from not only city commissioners, but residents asking not to pass this. And I know that it's over and over and over again, 42 cents. It's only 42 cents. But as someone like myself who is taking meals to Mount Clemens High School to feed kids that I don't know, because they are coming to school noticeably smaller because their mother can't afford to feed them like she did in prior years, 42 cents, it adds up. And you know, you can easily say, well, if she doesn't have that 42 cents, then she doesn't need a phone. Her oldest kid needs a phone because her oldest kid makes sure he or she goes to school, misses first hour to make sure the youngest kids get to school because the mother is working 2 jobs, or the father is working 2 jobs, or both parents, because it's just hard to make ends meet. So when kids are going to school hungry, you're growing up extremely poor. Mount Clemens does have a 22% poverty level. It's hard to say, yeah, they can give you 42 cents. And I appreciate that most people will never understand this, and I'm thankful that most people will never understand this. I understand it. I lived it. So I'm still on the fence, but did all that just to say that. But, you know, I completely agree, because I know when 911 is called, I want to make sure our seniors get reached, our kids that are in trouble get reached. And I know, you know, every time someone says, there's money, I see everyone's lips moving. There's no money. I don't know. I just feel like there are local grants that would support this more, and then we wouldn't even have to ask for that. But I do feel like if it's brought to the people, one of my cities would not pass this. So I just wanted to say that while I let other people talk, so I can think more.
Thank you, Commissioner Wallace. Commissioner VanSyckel.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure why we're still not giving the 911 services the respect that we give to our sheriff and police departments and fire departments. I fully support fully funding 911 through the budget system. It's been said here today that, oh, if we just have this surcharge, we'll have the funding for unknown expected cost increases in the future. I don't think that will fund your unexpected cost increases in the future. I want to be able to raise your budget appropriately as we go into the future. I think it'll be more than 42 cents appropriation will give you, because if we're going to really fund this and really support this, as it's been said, we need to keep up with technology and we need to do a good job at it. So I see this surcharge as limiting what the 911 services can do. I see funding it through the budget as really enabling our 911 services to be what they should be. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner VanSyckel. Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sure most in the audience aren't going to want to hear what I have to say anyway, so it was probably good that you skipped me. This is my 6th year serving here, and this has come up multiple times since I've been in this chair. I have voted the exact same way every single time, and I'm going to do that again today, which is no. I live in Chesterfield. My township supervisor right now is Bradley Kirsten. He's the former public safety director for my community as well. We've had ad nauseum conversations about this topic 3 years ago and now. He knows where I stand. I know where he stands. We both respect our positions. I have a problem with folks coming to the microphone and saying I don't support our first responders if I vote no today. Sheriff Wickersham can tell you that I've voted for things for the sheriff's office probably 97, 98% of the time, barring the jail. That was a big no for me. But I've supported our sheriff's office, and Bradley Kirsten knows I support our police in Chesterfield, and my chief in New Baltimore knows the same. And it's the same with Martha T. Berry. When the millage came up in the budget, I voted no on that budget specifically because I didn't want an increase in millage, and it's not because I hate senior citizens. My no vote today is not because I hate first responders and our dispatchers. Just wanted to clear the air for that. The sticking point for me is the 42 cents. Last time this came up years ago, it was 42 cents. Like my colleague said, record inflation is happening. Gas prices are through the roof. Yet that number has stayed at 42 cents. The only other thing that hasn't changed in that time is Arizona iced tea. They've been 99 cents throughout. I don't understand how that works. And I know 42 cents is better than nothing, but there was no increase. But I think the sticking point is for that is because you go 1 penny higher and we have to go to the voters. What's the problem with that? That hasn't been presented to us. Maybe I would vote yes on that to send it to the people to decide. But I can tell you 3 years ago when this came up and was all over the papers, I got more phone calls about this issue than any other issue since I've been serving. And everybody who called was a no. They told me to vote no. And the majority of them were senior citizens, which I found fascinating because many of those folks use your services more than most. So with that, I am going to be another no. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Kraft. Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. Being the oldest member of this commission, I do have some rights as an old man. I brought this out of committee, out of Records and Public Safety, and we had a majority vote which was in favor of this, of the 911 vote. You know, and it breaks down to this. Do you want to be known as a person who raised taxes? And you say no. Do you want to be known as a person that supports public safety? And you say, well, that's not the issue here. Nobody wants to raise taxes. However, think about this. We just came through something with the DIA, and I'm not picking on the DIA, that they came with us early and got their taxes. We raised their tax for them, and they came a year or two early. And we say to ourselves, wait a minute, how did that happen that we're going to do that? If you folks stop and think about it, we say $42. Damn, I just got my wall bill for $167. I can't squeeze 42 cents out of that. Let's talk about the money. If it was $2 per phone, is that what you're willing to pay for public safety? Being my age, I've used 911 out of Sterling Heights. 20 years as a city council member, I instituted and initiated when they did transport, because we didn't have that in Sterling Heights. And now everybody totally satisfied with it. So glad we have it, that it's so quick. And it's just like 911. We could cry all day about raising taxes, but guys, I don't think that's the issue. The issue is here, do we want to support the fact that there are residents out there that need this service? So you say, well, what if we don't? There's money out there to do it. What happens in 2 years? Well, if you can tell me what happens in 2 years, please tell me, because I want to bet the Preakness again, where that horse won that paid $100 and some odd. I'd like to know what's going to happen in 2 years. I don't know what's going to happen in 2 years. And I want to talk to the fire chief that said, and Jeff, I go along with you. You don't support us, we can't support you. Wrong. And I'm taking umbrage with that also. But I have been supporting public safety for the last 25 years. When it first came out to us a couple of years ago, and I've been on 6 years also, I voted no on it. But when you see the details, why it's needed, how they're trying to upgrade their equipment, what the money is that they need, you say, well, look for it in the budget. Well, if it's not there in the budget, now what do we do to you guys? You're going to start using tin cans with string on it to get a hold of each other? It's not funny, Nard. I just don't understand. I know the dollar amounts, again, we're talking 42 cents, and you know, some people have multiple phones, 4 or 5. Some people have 6, 7 phones. Guys, I talk to my seniors because I am a senior, and I'm down at the senior center all the time. And I've brought this up many times, and I'm telling you, honestly, take it for what it's worth. I have yet to hear, and I'm going to say seniors because the younger people I don't get a chance to talk to, there is not one senior that says to me, oh, I don't want to pay that kind of money. If I can have public safety, if I know that when I pick up that phone and call that they're going to be there, I'm for it. Because I need it, we want it, we want to keep the safety of our residents there. And I understand that there might be money available, but they're showing us that there isn't money available and they need it now. So I'm totally in favor of that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Romano. Commissioner Nard on the first round.
Wow. Okay. I've talked to several people about it, young and old, and 911 is very important to them. I've heard a lot about the 42 cents, $5 a year. These same people, and I've talked with people that are homeless, but they have a phone, and they have a phone that costs more than the one I have, and I work. So, I mean, they're going to pay the 42 cents. They're going to do it. I mean, they've come to me, and some people have, made comments, you're going to raise the taxes. When I ran, I told the people that I may not do everything that they liked, but what I would do, they can believe that it's going to be for the betterment of them. So I understand raising taxes. If they want to say, "Oh, Michelle, you raised taxes," I'm gonna be like, "Yeah, but you can also dial 911 when you need it." So I'm going to support this. I'm always going to support police and fire, and you know, I know a lot of people didn't like when you know, the chief said that you don't support them. I kind of understand where he's coming from, because I tell my family this all the time. You know, you say you love me, you say you support me, but where are you at when I have an event? Why is everybody else telling me how great I am? But I want to hear from my, you know, from my kids, my sisters. I had 8 sisters and 4 brothers, you know, and 23 grandkids. I'd like to hear it from them. So if you support me, I want to see you there. So I'm going to show my support by voting yes on this. And the people that I serve in the south end of Warren, I did the same thing Romano did. I asked the young and the old, and the people that just walk in the streets, didn't know where they were going. They just walking, and I stopped and said, "Hey, would you pay the 42 cents on that?" Well, I don't even know what I'm paying, but whatever it is, if I can dial 911, I want it. So I got you guys. We're going to go ahead and do this.
Thank you, Commissioner Nard. You know, friends, we all support law enforcement and fire services. We all do. We have a disagreement here about the theory that government needs more money to provide the servicers, or they don't. One side, the politicians, and we as a board are sitting at $174 million that have come from the federal government out of the blue, unexpected in our budget year, for money to help us offset expenses related to COVID funding and other related services. We also got another $50 million in line, though not yet here, from the state to help us fund other projects to help us with our budget. That's $218 million of unallocated money that are making our budget, things that we want to think as priorities in our county, more easily affordable. Here comes public safety from around the county saying we need to go to the taxpayers and ask them for more money to fund things that are critical to our operation. Just as critical as your fire trucks and police cars, I might add. Things that your local townships and cities budget for on an annual basis, so you got the money to buy your equipment when you need it. Those fire trucks and equipment are expensive, and you got to budget them over time so you have the money available to take care of it. Why haven't your local communities budgeted for those resources to fund your local PSAPs? Now, the county's got Comtech, and we funded it well, and we're going to continue to fund it and make sure it's got the best equipment necessary for the communities that decide to come in with us. Those of you who wish to stay outside because you think it's a better deal for your taxpayers and your community, that's fine. Well, why don't you budget it yourself and put in a seeking fund to fund the PSAP needs that you have, since you can do it better yourself? Just a question. Because it's all about budgeting, right? It's about budgeting money. Why should we have the cash? This county's got the money. We've got the money available to fund our Comtech, and out of the goodness of our heart, we're going to grant you money to fund the other PSAPs outside of our organization, because we can. Now, there's a disagreement between the executive's office and us about whether we can or not. But I'll take the word of the people at the National Association of Counties and the Michigan Association of Counties that contract with counties throughout the country that told me that we could do that under the funnel of public safety. There's broad enough regulations that allow us to fund those and grant the money, just like we granted the millions of dollars to businesses and fire departments during the COVID epidemic. Same thing, same approach. It was funny, I tried to get the cost from local communities, the local PSAPs, about what their needs are, what's their dollar values for the needs for the next 2 years, and I couldn't get the information. Now, there are probably a variety of reasons for why we didn't get the information, but it wasn't readily available. If they need the money so bad, you'd think they'd say, here's what we need, this is what we plan on spending the money for, so please help us and pass this tax, give this bill to the taxpayers to pay for us. But I didn't get it. I'm sure it's there, and we'll probably get it when we ask them for it. If this comes to pay, if this doesn't go through and we fund it ourselves, give you the money out of our take. Granted, all these other communities have allocations they're getting as well, but we won't talk about that. But we'll still provide it to you because we care about public safety. And we're going to use our own money and then sacrifice our own budget so that you've got the resources that you need. No one on this board is against public safety. It's about how we spend the taxpayers' money to give you what you need. My family's in law enforcement. I totally got it. No one's against you. Everyone in this county supports what you do. It's about how do we best allocate the money. It's easy to go to the taxpayers and hand them a bill. It's a little bit harder when we got the money because we all got goals of what we want to do with this extra money that's coming out of the blue. Oh, we can do this and this project now all of a sudden. Well, what's our priorities? Our priority is law enforcement. And out of the $218 million that this county has coming into our budget this year, out of the blue, I think it's worth $10 million to give our local PSAPs outside of our organization and our own the $10 million to fund them for 3 years. And we could dick around the number, but we've got plenty of money to do that and still take care of our own projects that we want internally. The jail, maybe another health department building, and the underground infrastructure, all necessary needed projects and should go forward, and I'm going to support those. But we can do this as well if we choose to. Now, people are going to resist that because they want to focus all the money on the 3 projects versus giving a little bit of money to our first responders. I say let's do both, and we can do both if we want to. And we've got the authority, we've got the legal authority to do it, and I say let's go forward and do this and not hand the bill to the taxpayers. It's a principle more than anything else. It's not, I've got 6 phones and 2 tablets, but I can afford the $5 a year. A year, it's not much, but it's the principle. We've got the money now. Why should government have to ask the taxpayers for more money when we got all this additional cash sitting here? And guess what? There's more money in Lansing. They got $3 billion still sitting in Lansing. They haven't even figured out how to spend yet. And there's appropriation bills right now up there trying to send more money down to us, and we're going to get some more of that. And it's going to make our budget even better. And not only our budget, but every local government in this county. So to go to the taxpayers and ask them for money for this is unnecessary. And I say no. I'm sorry. I'm not taking the easy road. We're going to take it out of our own hide and give it to all of you. But I'm happy to do it because we got the money. And I encourage my colleagues to do the same. Thank you. Commissioner Kleinfeld. Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you, Chair. Vicki, could you come to the microphone? And while she's coming up, I'm going to defend the fire chief in St. Clair Shores only because I've watched so many people draped in blue flags across the United States, and they're almost always in groups of people that wouldn't support raising taxes if their life depended on it. So I understand what he's feeling, and I also understand commissioners being offended. But I'm just going to defend him because I understand what he's personally feeling right now. There's been a couple things set up here that I want to clarify. Commissioner Sabatini said this would apply to iPads. Is that the case?
Yes, there's the potential to purchase.
There's a potential, okay.
iPads with the funding.
Okay. And then could you name, off of the top of your head, the communities that do not use Comtech?
The communities that do not?
Yeah, the communities that aren't included, yeah.
Sure. You have Sarisa, which is the Combined Dispatch Center of East Point, Roseville, St. Clair Shores, and Fraser. You have the City of Warren, City of Fraser, City of Warren, City of Centerline. And then you have Shelby Township, Utica, Romeo, Chesterfield.
Okay.
Richmond.
Okay.
Lost track, not counting. Thank you, sorry.
Okay. You have indicated pretty adamantly that we can't just choose to use that money to supplement another unit of government, so to speak, the way that some of the commissioners are describing. Do you believe that?
For county general fund.
Yes,
when
for
I
the
answer
general
that
fund
question, that pertains to county general fund dollars.
Yes.
We cannot. You can fund Comtech like you have, but we cannot take our taxpayer dollars and turn around and just give money to local jurisdictions.
Okay. And they don't have the opportunity to do this, what we're doing, by themselves?
Not through a surcharge. No,
Okay.
the legislation we're using is for a surcharge. It was intended for 911 and this purpose. So no, they cannot go to their local councils or township boards and say, we would like to put a surcharge on everyone's phone bill. That doesn't apply. That's a countywide initiative, and that needs to come to the county board.
Okay, so I believe there's been at least 3 commissioners that have indicated they intend to use general fund dollars. I have fought for years over the fact that animal control was provided in areas for free and other areas of the county were being charged, particularly the south end of the county. And now we're talking about using general fund dollars to fund the entities that use Comtech. And again, the taxpayers at the south end of the county are going to be funding and subsidizing the services for these other areas in the county. Not all of these are in the south end, but Centerline, Warren, Roseville, East Point, and St. Clair Shores, that pretty much covers the south end. We have a long history in this county of the north end being provided services that the south end's taxpayers were paying for that weren't required, like the road services, because of Act 51. It just developed that way, and so we continued to do it. It's very interesting. I don't know exactly how all that happened, but and it's not just the animal control. There are other things over the years that's happened with, correct? Honest to God, if we can't use it for that purpose, I'm at the point where I'd get all the citizens down there and say, it's time to sue the county, because the poorest end of the county cannot continue to subsidize everybody else. They cannot continue to subsidize everybody else's services. And and I don't believe for a second, by the way, if you put it in the budget, that our executive's just going to hand Sarisa that kind of money. And if it, especially when your position is you can't.
Right,
So,
county general funds.
so there will be a fight in budget, because I am not going to sit back and let the residents that I represent pay for everybody else's residents up here to get service and then pay for their own. I just want everybody to remember, we want to get back to doing it the right way, where we aren't doing that, where we aren't shortchanging residents in our county. That's all. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Kleinfeld. Commissioner Ha.
Thank you, Chair. Could I ask the chiefs from Roseville, East Point, and Fraser, and the head of Sarisa to stand up, please? These are the guys, I didn't see you, Chief Jacobs, welcome. These are the guys that are not being discussed enough. These are the guys that don't depend on the county budget. They depend on the municipality budget. Sarisa costs in Roseville, East Point, and Fraser are $1 million per community. Our city manager gave me that today. If we were to give you, through the county budget, the funds this year, that doesn't guarantee anything for those guys right there next year or the year after that. What they're looking for is improved technology that has sustainability to be able to be paid for. We still haven't had clarification of what, you can sit down, gentlemen, thank you. We still haven't had clarification of whether or not we can even give them the money. And then we have to give it to them again, year after year after year. This county is going to have priorities, and ARP money and other funding these are one-time deals, one-time monies. So we give it to you this year. What are you going to do next year? If Roseville's got to come up with $3 or $4 million to sustain Sarisa and the other surrounding communities in the southern part of Macomb County have to make that same payment out of their general budgets, they could go broke. There's something going to be left out. Public safety is number one in our communities, and it has been. I can't remember the last time a fire truck got turned down. Maybe the chief can. I can't remember the last time our chief hasn't come to him and asked for squad cars or things and it got turned down. Sustainability is the issue here. The fact that the county has gotten a windfall of money recently doesn't mean we're getting it again next year. So you all have to go to your city managers and say, gotta have another $1.5 million, $2 million. These communities want to become part of Comtech. It's the most advanced system. I heard Hacko say it in the whole country. And plus, I've seen some of the technology they want to upgrade to. This saves lives. So a one-time fix isn't going to do it. It has to be something that's sustainable, or don't do it. Vote no. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Ha. Commissioner Song.
Thank you, Chair. Can I have Vicki come back up here for just a question? Thank you. How are you, Vicki?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Regarding like the iPad devices, does this include prepaid devices? I saw it in the packet during the presentation, but I can't find that now. So
Yeah,
would
they
this
would have-
surcharge apply?
On those devices,
Prepaid?
the prepaid, no, it doesn't, right? Sorry, Angela will answer that better.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sorry. So for any device that has a data plan, so a cellular plan, that's what this fee would be assessed on. So, for example, my children have 2 iPads. They don't have data plans on those. Those fees would not be imposed on those iPads themselves. So only if you have a service plan. I don't know if you can do a prepaid service plan on a cell phone or on a iPad. However, prepaid devices in general are not included in this specific surcharge. So with prepaid devices, when those are purchased, the retailer remits 6% of that sale to the state, and then that's included in the state distribution and revenue that we receive. So there's no local fee assessed on prepaid devices at all.
What if they purchase the device like on a online retailer?
That retailer is responsible to remit that to the state.
Okay, so even like auction sites like eBay, or there's like
they would
the resale ones like Macari?
Well, I'm not exactly familiar with, a resale or
Facebook
third-party
Marketplace.
vendor. Yeah, well, I mean, it's hard to imagine that if they were to purchase that through, a resale that it would also come with service on it, unless it's, brand new. They would likely have to implement service on that, and if that were the case, then they would be paying a local fee.
So I think the point I'm trying to get at is there's other ways around not having to pay that $5 if people really wanted to. And I think a lot of senior citizens and low-income families do use prepaid phones where they buy the card at the store and then they load the phone. And so I think a lot of our residents have that option. And if they don't want to have to, pay the 42 cents per month, there's other ways around it.
Yes.
Not suggesting to do that, but that's an option too. And so thank you so much for clarifying that. Appreciate it. Thank you, Chair.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner VanSyckel.
I think everybody has spoken once on the commission, and if nobody has any objections, I'm going to call the question.
Commissioner VanSyckel's first.
I think he spoke already.
I'm going to get him to speak. Commissioner VanSyckel.
Well, I'm going to call the question. Do I have any support for calling the question for the vote?
Yeah, point of order, he's called the question, we have to have a vote.
I recognize Commissioner VanSyckel first.
I called the question. I think the time for when I call the question, the vote comes up.
He's the last speaker on our list.
You're going to go outside the procedure, you can do what you want, Chairman. Go ahead.
We'll call the question without objection. Okay. Call the vote.
Motion passes 8-5. Commissioners Brown, Farrington, Kraft, Sabatini, and VanSyckel voting no.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Item 7B, resolution authorizing the City of St. Clair Shores to collect the 2022 winter tax levy on the 2022 summer tax bill for all parcels with a total bill of $100 or less. I need a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion on this item? Hold on a minute. I don't see any. Please vote. Okay.
Motion passes 12-0.
Thank you. Item 8, presentation by SMART. Update of SMART. We have a Dwight Farrell from the director of the SMART here today, and his deputy director, Robert Kramer. Good afternoon.
Robert Kramer is to my left. This tall, distinguished gentleman here is our deputy general manager, and Ms. Bonnie McInerney is our ombudsman representing us in relationship to Macomb County. I think some of you know her.
I need a motion to receive and file this.
Made by Haw.
Support. Very good. Now, please proceed.
Phew, my goodness, you guys tired?
No.
Not yet.
Just getting started.
Warmed up.
Yeah, well, in another life, I certainly understand this. I have sat through many of these meetings, and I will promise you I will be brief. I recognize also that quite much like the item that was previously discussed, for some, SMART is a lightning rod issue, and public transportation in particular. But I would like for you to rest assured that this is not the old SMART we are talking about, but this is the new SMART. And I'd like to also acknowledge the commissioner who prayed this morning. I'm a preacher's kid, so I will try not to get too excited and preach a sermon about how passionate I am about this. That being said, we'll figure out which one of these buttons works. So, SMART vision. We want to be seen. In order to be seen, that means that you all have to perceive it. It doesn't matter what we perceive, as the transportation leader for this region. I'm not going to get into some of the things that I've heard about various organizations in the region as it relates to public transportation, but I'm going to tell you that this is the new 800-pound gorilla in the room. All right? Having said that, oh, and before I get started, I'd also like to to say that I'd like to thank the Macomb County Board of Commissioners and the Macomb County for being the only county in SMART that is all in. That is significant, and I would like to acknowledge that, and I appreciate it. The things that you are doing, while I may not have been here, I have been in transit for 42 years, and I certainly understand the impact that public transportation can have on individuals as well as business. So I thank you. So with that being said, we want to be, and we are going to be, the transportation leader in this region. We are going to be accountable. That means if we do something wrong, we'll deal with it. We are going to be transparent. That is one of the reasons why we are here today. I can't speak about what SMART has done previously, but we want you as elected officials and your citizens to know what we are doing and how we are doing with your money. Inclusive. I don't think I need to speak about this, but we want to expand our small business and minority business and women-owned business and veterans-owned businesses so that we can be more inclusive and sustainable. And by sustainable, I don't mean just green. I mean both greens: cash green and environmental green. We want an organization that can serve this community and serve it well. And we certainly want to be valued. So our future, in order to be able to do this, we're a service organization. We have to be people-focused. We have some of the same challenges that you do in terms of trying to hire and retain staff. And in order to be able to do that, happy employees mean happy customers. And so we're doing some things within our organization so that we can focus on and making sure that we can hire and attract talent and retain it. Forward thinking. There were lots of conversations in the previous, discussing the previous issue as it relates to cell phones and the cell phone charge and what have you. Let me just say this. I remember the first cell phone I had was in my car in the 1980s. It was $500 used. It was a lot of money back then. And now a cell phone at some point is going to be something that I will just have in my tongue and I won't need to do anything. I'll just put a SIM card in it. But forward thinking is what we are going to be in terms of how we deliver service to our community. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. Economic development collaborator. Every county, every city in this country depends on business to relocate or expand in their community in order to be able to expand your tax base. We at SMART fully understand that you cannot just tax individuals to death and have your county grow. It is not possible. I also know that this region, much like every other region in the country, wanted Amazon's HQ too. For those of you, that's Amazon's second headquarters. Their top priority in that, and this was not for warehouse jobs, these were for high-paying jobs, was robust public transportation. So, we want to put ourselves in a position where we can help businesses. And I want to make this a point to be real clear. Some of you say, some individuals say, I don't use transit, so I don't need it. Yeah, but the people that you depend on do. The people that you love do. If you got a family member in a hospital or a nursing home, I guarantee you they depend on public transportation because the people who work there depend on it. So, again, I'm going to try not to preach because, again, I've lived this with my own mother when my mother was in the hospital, and the service that she got I could attribute to the level of public transportation that was provided to the 3 different hospitals she was in while she was sick. So, continuous improvement. Continuous means ongoing. We intend to bake that into SMART. What we do today is great, but we're going to have to continue to improve on it. We talked about cell phones. You know, talk about computers. I've got a cell phone in my pocket more powerful than the first 3 computers that I bought. But that's continuous improvement, and that's what we intend to do. So, SMART is not the bus company. SMART's going to be the mobility manager. Connectivity. Let's be clear. Everybody's not going back to work downtown Detroit. But there's going to be a lot of people moving back in the community, and we intend to serve that. Economic impact. I don't think I need to talk about that anymore. Quality of life. The 2 largest demographics in the United States today are baby boomers and millennials. And those of you who have millennial children, God bless you, because I have too. And they are the ones that told me about the term quality of life. I didn't know what quality of life meant before my youngest son told me that. Quality of life for me when I was going on is that you made money and that gave you a quality of life. Now it's about having time with family and doing things. It's very different. And independence. Well, the gentleman who spoke, who talked about, the gentleman who spoke earlier about him not being able to drive at night and what transit would do for him in terms of independence. For those of you who have never had to take keys from your parents, good for you. But if you do, your parents are not independent anymore. If you don't have a system, which is the one we're going to talk about that we're going to provide to all of Macomb, they can keep their independence. And independence doesn't mean waiting on your son or your grandson or what have you to get off from work. I know personally the biggest struggle that my mother had was the loss of independence. So, We're committed to providing increased mobility and access across Macomb County and the region. We want to simplify our service so it's easy to use. Make sure that it's functional. So one of the things that I want to talk about is SMART today. You know, so SMART has the same challenges that this county has. Talent. And so we're dealing with the increasing costs that everybody else is dealing with as it relates to fuel, labor, health care, utilities, maintenance, and aging infrastructure. We have 3 facilities that were not purpose-built to be bus facilities. They were retrofit facilities that are long past their useful life. That's just some of the issues that we are dealing with that cause our costs to be what they are. I'd also like to point out that what we're about to ask for is, and I know this is not on the agenda, and I know what I'm about to say is bold, but I would certainly hope that this commission at some point would approve a renewal of the SMART millage in November 2022 I said renewal, I didn't say increase. Now, since this rate was set in 2014, nothing costs the same as it did since 2014, but we're not asking for an increase. We are going to live within the means that we have. And I'd also like to point out that for every dollar that we receive locally, we get $1.34 from state and federal funding in terms of the formula money that you see. That doesn't include the discretionary funding for other things. But this is the money that we use to be able to replace buses and keep our system running. So, assuming that it passes, here's what you can expect. Certainly an improved quality of service, transforming the authority from an operator to a mobility manager. I talked about that. Deploying a single application, smartphone application that allows you to plan your trip, pay for your trip, and ride your trip. We're looking for ways to be able to, and we're not talking about something that's going to happen 5 years down the road. We're talking about things that we are in the process of doing now. So that's why I say this is a new SMART. We at some point want to be able to integrate this application with scooters and bikes or whatever that happens to be out here, and TNCs like Uber and Lyft. Again, single application. And we're not talking about something that's experimental. This is already being done in other regions today. So it's not something that we are bleeding edge on, but this is something that we're just simply going to replicate and modify for deployment here. And expand flex service. Some of you know about flex service, and some of you have no idea what flex service is, but you're about to find out. So in order to be able to do the piece about flex, one of the things that we learned in having conversations with people in Macomb was when we deployed our initial flex zone, we did it in a vacuum. We didn't get input from elected officials like yourself and the community. We're not going to make that mistake again. And we also didn't market it very effectively, but we will, this new flex. So what is flex? So flex is an on-demand service right now. In a flex zone that we have, there's an app that you can book a trip real time. And I think the average response time now is what, about 15 minutes, Robert? In that zone. That's about not quite as good as Uber, but close. And it doesn't cost like Uber either, by the way. So here, this picture is a current view of the flex zone, the area that's in the dotted lines. We have that flex service in Macomb County right now. It's been running for about a year. Now, I'm going to let Robert tell you what color Macomb is in here because I'm colorblind, but Robert did the chart, so he can tell you which one is reflects the ridership. But as you can see, the ridership has grown and continues to grow. So this is the vision for Macomb for flex service. Now, this is for illustrative purposes only. These zones could be shaped a lot of different ways, but we simply did this to be able to illustrate the point of what we plan to deploy in Macomb County. And no, it won't be a bunch of 40-foot buses running around northern Macomb because it's just not necessary. We intend to beef up local service on our heavier ridership routes. Basically, we're talking about deploying resources. But this gives people who don't have access, very good access now, more frequent service to be able to communicate within their community. Most people, quite frankly, don't go more than about a 10-mile radius of where they live anyway. Most people don't do that. And so this allows people to do that. Now this service currently runs from 5 till 11, 5 a.m. to 11 o'clock at night, 7 days a week. Now, can you imagine being able to, not necessarily have to own a car, but having the choice to be able to move about and just be able to take out your phone like you do with Uber and go somewhere else? So these will take you within these zones, but they'll also take you to trunk lines so that you can continue your trip. If you'll notice is it blue dots, Robert? Yeah. Those blue dots are proposed mobility zones, mobility hubs. That's where people can come and make transfers from one to another. So now you can't take it from northern Macomb all the way to downtown Detroit or to the airport. No, you can't do that. But you will be able to move about Macomb very quickly. And so in the areas where there's not as much density, then the response time may be a little bit longer. But as this rolls out and there's more usage, we have more than enough capacity, and we'll have enough capacity in order to be able to deliver this service. So, with that, this is assuming approval, and I certainly would like the support of the commission. And I recognize, quite frankly, that there are two ends of the political spectrum on this commission and on every commission. And at the end of the day, the one thing I've found in my years of service as it relates to transit is about economics. It's about money. Yes, people needed to get to work and what have you, I understand that. But at the end of the day, they're doing what? They're going to work. And there are businesses, more and more businesses who depend on transit to be able to get to work. And so that's what we are, not the transit system, but the mobility manager. So with that, Mr. Chair, certainly we would be happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Well, first, let me thank you for upgrading the slides into the color codes and putting the communities in there. Before, one big slide was Macomb County.
Yes.
You did mention this is not an increase, this is a renewal.
Yes.
How come it can't be a decrease?
Well,
you just sat through the whole last meeting, right?
Yeah, I know. I got it. I was wondering when that was going to come up. It can't be a decrease without us reducing service. As I mentioned to you before, that $1.34 of leverage that we get from federal funds is our operating and capital budget in order to be able to operate the service as it is right now. We are faced with a substantial increase in fuel that anybody who's buying fuel is dealing with. As a matter of fact, all of our petroleum products are going up. Not only just fuel, but oil. As you can imagine, we have a lot of that we have to be able to deal with. Our cost of labor is going up. Our cost to be able to compete for talent is going up. And so all of those things. And then again, does anybody have an old car?
Define old.
Well, let's put it this, one that's 10 years old or older. You got an old house? Okay. How much does an old house cost more to maintain than a new one? You can rest assured. And so we have old infrastructure. We just awarded a contract since I've been here for $1.2 million to update bus washers. That's just an example. And how many of you know how much a bus costs? Want to guess? $90,000?
90.
Oh, you've got to be kidding. A bus today is $550,000 a copy.
That's why I drive a car.
An electric bus is $1 million. So, you know, in 2014, when this millage was set in, a bus was about $400,000. And I wouldn't even dare to say what, those of you who know about the cost of talent, we're competing with Target and UPS and everybody else for talent, and they pay more than we pay. One of the upsides for us is we pay more than DDOT pays. So it's a challenge for us. And I also want to be clear that fiscally, I'm a conservative. I don't like to see my money wasted. And I look at Smart's money as my money. And Robert can tell you, I say to my staff all the time, would you spend your money like this? You wouldn't spend your money like this. Why would you spend this? Matter of fact, and so I want you to understand where I'm coming from as the leader of this organization. The board went through a lot of effort, and there were a lot of people who were interested in this. And I'm not saying this to blow my own horn, but I have dealt with much, much larger systems, much, much bigger budgets, and I dealt with transit and county government through the economic downturn. So I certainly understand about how to use dollars wisely. And so that's exactly what we're going to do. If we could have offered a decrease, we would have.
Thank you. That's all I have, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Matuzik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is sort of a technical question. May not be yours to answer, maybe the chair's to answer. When do we as a group have to approve this to be on the ballot in November? Is there a timeline?
I believe it's August 14th. It's around August. I can check with the clerk's office.
Okay, so sometime between now and August, we have to approve putting the renewal on the ballot.
It has to be through the entire process. So ideally, you guys would approve if you did or did not before that, because there's more to do after that.
Okay, thank you. That was part of my question. My other question is, I'm a big fan of the bus system. I think it moves a lot of people who don't have any other way to get around, and I think it's really important. And as someone who had to take car keys away, it was a big thing. Mobility is really critical. But relating to my colleague's question about cost, and this is a very hard question because you're attempting to maintain service, but what is the system doing in terms of becoming more energy efficient, vehicle-wise, infrastructure-wise, route-wise?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. We just took delivery of 4 electric buses.
Okay.
We were fortunate enough to get a grant from the federal government that covered a substantial portion of those. We also have a plan to add more to that. But I'd also like to caution the board, electric vehicles cost because then there's training associated with it to train diesel mechanics to now become electricians. And so we're looking at that. Obviously, our buses are more fuel efficient than they were in 2014. Our ability to maintain them and maintain them well is critical. That's where the staffing piece comes in. So we are also dealing with that issue. And part of what we're also looking at is we're not just going to ask for money that comes from the Department of the FTA, but we're also going to be looking at the Department of Energy for energy type grants for solar kinds of things. So in my past life, I don't know if of you all are familiar, excuse me, I'll get it out, familiar with Tigger grants, not Tiger, but Tigger. It's 2 G's. When I was in Atlanta, we got the largest Tigger grant that was issued, $10.4 million to put solar panels and canopies over a bus garage in Atlanta to power the facility. So we're going to be looking at ways like that as we upgrade facilities to make them more efficient. I know we're already doing something in terms of lighting and LED lighting and those kinds of upgrades. And so again, sustainability, again, this continuous improvement that I'm talking about is how we deliver service differently. We're also looking at being more paperless in terms, and that's one of the things I can say about Teams and Zoom is there's not a lot of paper going around. So we've been able to accomplish that. And so we'll just be continuing to do that. And in fact, my colleague, Robert, is actually LEED certified. So having someone of his caliber on our team who can help us and guide us is certainly a plus.
And the only other thing I want to say is I'm very proud of the fact that Macomb County is all inclusive in the SMUS, in the SMART system. I think that's really important and sends an important message that all of our citizens, not just citizens that live in poor areas, but all of our citizens matter and have the right to mobility around the county and across the county, east-west, which is where most of our folks go. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'd also like to, there's always this perception that, you know, we run these big empty 40-foot buses and what have you. As we redeploy our equipment and transition, there will be less need for that. And I'd also say, I'll draw a comparison. When an airplane lands and people get off of it at a terminal, it's empty until somebody else gets on it. So if you see our buses sitting, collecting at an end of a line, it may not be anybody on it. But Robert can give you the details, but our route that's on Gratiot, is it the highest ridership?
Yeah. Gratiot's the highest ridership route in the system. Yeah.
So, and I'd also like to offer this. I'm offering Robert and myself and my staff to meet you all individually at your offices or wherever you'd like to meet for us to talk in greater detail about SMART and what we're doing. Because again, I want people to be able to understand what it is that we're doing with your tax dollars.
Thank you. Commissioner, are you done, Commissioner?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Commissioner Wallace.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that I really like the idea of expansion and the, is it the flex?
Yes.
I really like that. I've been down to our transportation center, is it 15 Mile, last year and did a tour, spoke with a lot of workers and was able to watch one of the buses get repaired, which was pretty extensive. And just all that was done after COVID to get back out and get people where they needed to go. You know, it's so important that not just our elderly, but the kids, all ages, get to where they need to go. A lot of our elderly absolutely depend on this transportation. And like I said before, the expansion, one person called and told me that they had to get dropped off at a certain place, not near her doctor's office, just because it didn't reach that point. So it was kind of difficult because, again, elderly getting dropped off to get to a doctor's appointment for ailment, and she has to walk. So to hear that expansion could be happening is pretty important, and I love to hear that. But I like I said, I think this is great. So thank you for coming in and presenting it.
Because we really are trying to focus on the last mile aspect. And I want to say, you've heard me talk about my mother from time to time. My mother was my world. I have told people on more than one occasion I'm an unabashed mama's boy. And so I saw firsthand what the loss of independence means. And we want to be and are going to be the entity that ensures that people can keep their independence.
Thank you.
I think that's a nice sound. It may be time for me to go.
Are you done, Commissioner? Are you done, Commissioner Wallace? Thank you. Commissioner Zinner.
Thank you, Chair. Great explanation and things. From the large 40-foot buses, how big will the buses be that will be smaller than that are going to be, we see on the Gratiot and other places?
The flex buses are Chrysler Pacificas.
Well, I saw those. So
I thought,
okay, so that's what, I thought that was the ones that were going to be picking people up in their homes.
Well, Flex is,
Okay.
Flex may pick you up at your house and take you to the grocery store because that's where you want to go within that zone. And it'll be a Chrysler Pacifica. The biggest that it'll be is a cutaway. And for a cutaway is basically the vehicles that we use for paratransit customers. So it's basically a big van.
Okay.
So
All right,
we're
good.
not going to be having 40-foot buses going down people's streets.
I got that. Yeah.
So I don't know that they have it here, but if you're familiar with Uber Pool, Uber Pool is, depending on the city and how many vehicles they have, they allow you to pool rides.
Wow.
So there may be 2 people on this, they may pick you up and somebody else up,
Oh.
depending on where you're going.
Your large buses, will you get any money for those? I mean, that's just for you. I'm just curious.
Oh, sure. Yeah, not much. As much as they cost, you don't get a very good
Yeah,
return.
I figure.
By the time we're done with them, in any transit system, as far as that's concerned, so it's not just SMART, there's not a lot of value. If you can get $10,000 or $15,000 for one, you're lucky.
Well, that's at least good. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Sabatini.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Dwight.
Yes, hello.
I'll just throw it out there. I represent Macomb Township.
I know you do.
So, my district is not happy with SMART in relation to how much tax dollars we're paying to SMART and what we're getting in return. I looked at your slides here in regards to your challenges as far as all your increasing costs.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, with all of these challenges that you have between fuel, labor, healthcare, maintenance, aging infrastructure, and everything that's on this list, you're only asking for a renewal.
Mm-hmm.
How do you change your service with the same amount of revenue with all of these huge challenges?
Oh, because we're good. I wish I could just end with that. Quite frankly, as we look at redeployment, it's costly to buy and maintain 40-foot buses. And so using smaller vehicles will help substantially. We intend to be very aggressive in the discretionary grant market to deal with some capital challenges. One of the unique things about the state of Michigan is that the state pays pretty much the local match for grants that you get from the federal government. This is the only place I have ever worked in that had a state that would do that. So those are things that we are having as well. I want you to think about, how many of you have flown Southwest Airlines or know about Southwest Airlines? Southwest Airlines' business model is a single plane. They're all 737s, one plane, that's how they operate. So that's how SMART's pretty much operated, is all 40-foot buses. Delta, on the other hand, has an array of airplanes to be able to meet different needs. And that's what we're going to do, and in doing so helps us lower our cost. We're also going to look at, in terms of fuel, is how we can hedge. Because one of the things about a fuel hedge, it protects you from volatility in the market that we've experienced. So there are a number of different business practices that we plan to deploy in order to be able to live within those. You also said, I mentioned in there about healthcare. SMART's the largest organization that I've worked in that didn't self-insure. It's cheaper to self-insure than it is to buy insurance on the open market, and that's something that we'll be looking at doing as well. So I could go down the list of things that we can do, but again, when I just for this body to understand, about how, the things that I talk about in terms of transparency, accountability, and what have you are personal for me. I started my career as a bus operator, so you can't miss me on anything in terms of the experience. And transforming organizations is what I do. And being able to apply business practices to a public entity is what we're talking about. So I can't say that we run it like a business, but there are clearly business principles that we can apply that allows us to be able to do this.
I might have missed this in the presentation, but one of your slides had a number of these mobility hubs.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because looking at the map, I had it on
that's
the
for
screen.
illustrative purposes now. So that doesn't mean they're going to be right where they are.
Okay, so this is in planning. This is where you would like them to be.
No, this is for illustrative purposes. This is in order for us to determine where they're going to go. We will have to work with those communities where we want to deploy them. As I stated in my presentation, what we did with Flex, and we learned this from your chair and vice chair, when we put Flex out, we didn't talk to anybody. We did it in a vacuum. We're not going to do that anymore. And so as we deploy this service, and even as we do zones, those will be done with significant community engagement. And those mobility hubs will be the exact same way.
Okay. I know there's a number of other speakers here, and our meeting is getting into 2 hours, so I'm certainly will have more questions for you.
I'd be happy to schedule a time with your office if you'd like to go through all of this.
That would be great.
Okay, sure, we'll do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My fellow commissioner earlier mentioned why not a decrease, and you laughed, some other board members laughed, but this is a quick turnover of a lesson from what we just saw with 911. I just want to throw that out there real quickly. But for you, sir, can you send us over any stats, ridership, types of buses, number of buses, types of vans, numbers of vans to our staff so that we can take a look and have all those numbers in front of us for when we go forward to help us with this decision?
Sure. I mean, we can give you where we are existing. Sure, we'd be happy to provide that.
Thank you.
One of the things that I'd also like to point out is for you to look at SMART from a historical perspective and to try to predict where it's going to go forward is impossible to do because the changes in travel patterns and working because of the pandemic. Every day something pops up in my feed about somebody cutting or moving out of RenSan because their workers are not going to be at work. The CEO of General Motors, when they asked her about bringing people back to work, her response was 2 words. She tells her staff to work appropriately. So what we are talking about doing is mobility management in terms of how we help people move around communities where they want to go and do so efficiently.
Quick question, one more question, Mr. Chair. When it comes to the flex fleet, disclosure, I'm the chair of community mental health, and we have a lot of folks that use the SMART system.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to the flex vans, would any of those or are any of those handicap accessible, wheelchair accessible? That would be another statistic I'd like to see, how many there are in the fleet or how many are planned.
Well, go ahead.
So all of our direct operated vehicles, community vehicles, those are 100%. Everyone has a lift. The flex vans are the Pacificas. Also has a proportion of the fleet that are Dodge Caravans that are WAVE, wheelchair accessible vehicles. And the system's designed so that when you set up your account, you can indicate that you need that, and it will ensure that you have the accommodations you need.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Kraft. Commissioner Song.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding those flex vehicles, are any of those hybrids or electrical?
Not yet.
Okay, so the plan is to convert all of them eventually?
Well, as the technology gets there and the infrastructure gets there that allows us to do that, yes, absolutely.
Okay, wonderful. I should mention I do drive a hybrid Pacifica, so I think those vehicles are great. And I'm, a huge proponent of public transportation. Took the smart bus in all my college years, from Warren to downtown Detroit. So I certainly appreciate the accessibility of what SMART is all about. I'd be interested to, I appreciate that you guys are, forward thinking in your mission, but I'd be interested to see if you have any other innovative solutions to transportation in general and collaborating with other entities. Because the Flex program is, it makes sense to fill that last mile, but in essence, it's just another vehicle on the road that adds to the congestion of the road. And I hate sitting in traffic. I hate driving. If I had to, I'd just walk and bike everywhere. So for me, I'm very conscious about the fact that you're putting vehicles on the road and not really solving the solution of bad roads to begin with that are salted, and the addition of being an Uber and a Lyft, and not necessarily saying that this should become a privatized institution, but I don't know how it solves that part of the problem that we do have. And the fact that we don't have mass transportation, like you mentioned, and the reason why, big corporations like Amazon would never look to the Southeast Michigan region for that. So what are your plans for really moving us forward?
Well, that's a big one. There are, if my memory is correct, there are about 15 metropolitan areas in the United States that could accommodate what Amazon was looking for. And that's just the reality, because they were looking for something with very large multimodal organizations that had span that connected people. So you're looking at the Dallases, Atlantas, Washingtons, New York, those kinds of things. In order to be able to replicate what those cities have done, is the people who are young would be retired or dead by the time we did that here. Quite frankly, given the changes that have happened as a result of COVID, a lot of those places now find themselves in situations where they've got more equipment than they actually need. So we want to take a look at, particularly in high density areas, bus rapid transit. And by bus rapid transit, I'm talking about a dedicated right-of-way with a bus, electric vehicle preferably, that doesn't stop every corner. So you basically use it like a rail system, except you use it with a bus. And you, to the extent that you can grade separate it across intersections so you don't get caught in the traffic lights and what have you, that's very doable. And so those are the kinds of things in terms of innovation that help, because then that gets more people off of the roads, because now you can make longer trips a lot quicker than what we can currently. So, and the significant portion about that is that in Washington, D.C., both sides of the aisle like BRT. So you can get significant federal dollars for that. I would recommend to this body, if you look at Indianapolis, and what it has done with BRT has been transformative. If you look at Minneapolis, that started with light rail and now has a very substantial BRT network. And if you look at Cleveland with what their health line did, they got 1,000 to 1 return on economic development along that corridor. So we have corridors in this region where our fast routes are that are prime for BRT. So that's more of a longer term to address the issue that you're talking about, and doing that with green vehicles is how you'd go about doing that.
Thank you. Commissioner Meyer, you done? Yes. Commissioner Farrington.
Thank you, Chair. Dwight, thank you for coming, all of you. In Wayne County and Oakland County, how many communities have opted out of SMART?
Can you answer that one, Robert?
Yes and no. So the
approximate.
Yeah, in Oakland County, it's about 2/3 of their communities from a numbers standpoint are out, and in Wayne County, I believe it's about 1/3 of their communities. A point of clarification is that they did not take action to opt out. They did not take action to join the taxing authority.
Same thing.
Okay.
In Macomb, how many? You said none, right? That's because we haven't allowed our communities that option. So not only are the northern communities not being serviced by SMART subsidizing the southern communities, but we're subsidizing Oakland County and Wayne County communities. Because whether it be Macomb, Shelby Township, some of the other northern ones, they're paying for a service that doesn't come to their community, and yet we're paying for Oakland and Wayne where those people had the option to not opt in, correct? I mean, that's just math.
Respectfully, point of clarification.
Sure. Sir, can you speak in the microphone, please?
Yes, sorry about that. A point of clarification on that. So when we do our operating budget every year, we tie within 1% the amount of operating dollars allocated to service in each county to the portion of the local proceeds from that.
So you're saying that the communities that are not being serviced, those monies, or let me put it another way, those monies raised in Macomb only go to Macomb County?
Proportionally, yes. So about 36% of our local tax dollars that come to SMART are from Macomb County communities, and within 1%, 36% of our operating budget is spent on hours and miles that are operated in the county.
Okay. Yeah. It just you might recognize the name because it was my wife that presented the bill at the state to allow Macomb to have that option, and it was the Oakland County reps that already opted out that stopped it. So just let you guys know that as you decide on, if people want to use SMART, that's fantastic. But I don't want to pay for it if it's not even in my community. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farrington. As a point of clarification, my community has STAR. We've had a local millage that we use to support our own community, our citizens, and it drives them around in our 4 township area, takes seniors to where they need to go. But it's also supported by SMART community credits, and they also have 13 vehicles that they provide in their fleet of variety. 7 of those are provided by SMART for free, and the maintenance of all the vehicles are done by SMART for free. So it's SMART's kind of way of saying, well, we don't have any buses. Well, they do run a bus up there, but it's pretty vacant. But they do support support for my community in that regard. So just for disclosure's sake.
But we have 69 vehicles, community partner vehicles in Macomb County alone.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there are. And to Commissioner Kraft's earlier question, those would be information we'd like to see so we know where they're at. Because I know there's some embedded over in Richmond area and in that side of town, in the northern end of town, for the same general reason that we weren't receiving any services, and so we leaned on SMART to provide something benefit to them. And beyond that, I like what I hear from SMART, saying that you're making the system more usable for the people that would never put their family on a bus for a variety of reasons, and I don't want to go through them all, but if you got a system that people could use, much like my STAR service that we're already paying a tax for, by the way, we don't, so some would say we're paying a double tax for keeping SMART around, but if they can get a select service that takes it from point A to point B, it makes it more user-friendly than the old fixed route buses driving down with shaded glass, by the way, which I hope you don't put in any of your new cars. People always thought there was the shaded big buses were a reason to show that there's no actually in the buses driving around.
That's not the intent.
That's a cynical Macomb County person in me, but anyway, so I'm glad you're here. I'm glad for the information, and provide that information to Commissioner Kraft and the rest of us, and we'll.
And I just want to be clear, and I started my comment with this. Trying to judge what SMART's going to do based on what SMART's done, this is a different place. This is a different time. and recognizing that Macomb is all in and providing service to all of Macomb County by SMART in a way that is usable is what we are interested in doing. And in doing so, not doing it in a vacuum, but doing it in concert with cities and townships and communities about the kind of service that they want. We have not done that before, but we are doing that going forward.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions from the commissioners? Commissioners, I'm sorry, you didn't see on the list. Go
I
ahead.
just put on, it just dawned on me, I tend to think of the way things have always been versus change. I don't like change. So, and the two cities that I represent, they're very pro smart. I would say the small smart buses, but you're changing things. So, will you still be providing the Pacificas in those immediate communities where they've been?
Yeah, we're not taking away anything.
You're just adding more around.
We're just adding more.
Yeah, I just want to make sure of that.
And we have some service out here. In some instances, the service is every hour?
Yeah,
well,
that's great.
Well, to be quite frank, if I got to wait every hour on a bus, I'm not going to take it. But replacing that with an on-demand service that allows you to move about and get to more frequent service actually shortens your overall trip time.
Yeah, that's great.
And that's what we are talking about here, is actually using the equipment efficiently.
Thank you all. Thank you all for coming.
Sure.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Seeing none, is there a motion to receive and file? Can I have a vote? Thank you very much for coming down, and hope you enjoyed your time at the Macomb County Board of Commissioners.
Always a pleasure.
We aim to please around here. Thank you. Without objection, I'd like to move the proclamations up ahead of our agenda because we've got people in the audience that have time constraints on them, and I want to bring them forward.
Without objection.
Please, okay, very good.
What did you do?
Move them up.
The proclamation.
We move the proclamation up now.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
So, item 16A, a proclamation making May 14th is Hmong American Day. Commissioner Mai, please.
Thank you, Chair.
Floor is
I'll
yours.
make the motion. Support. And I had a 5-page letter speech written out, but being that we've had a really long meeting, I'm just going to read this proclamation, and then I will present it to our guests who are here.
Please, if they would like to come up, while you read it, would that be all right?
Sure.
Please.
Yes, so I'd like to ask Dr. Ali Lee to come to the podium. Dr. Ali Lee is the president of the Michigan Hmong Women's Association, and with her are some of our community members from the Hmong community.
Very good.
So
Thank you.
this-
Welcome.
Thank you. So this is the official proclamation of the Board of Commissioners, Macomb County, Michigan, a proclamation recognizing May 14th as Hmong American Day. Whereas the first Hmong families arrived in the United States as refugees of war in 1976, with thousands settling in the state of Michigan, and whereas during the Vietnam War, the Central Intelligence Agency and United States Armed Forces recruited, organized, trained, and assisted Hmong forces to combat the North Vietnamese Army and Communist Pathet That Lao forces. And whereas Hmong guerrilla soldiers courageously fought alongside Americans during the secret war in Laos, and whereas thousands of Hmong men, women, and children died in Laos, their deaths unaccounted for, while their commitment to rescuing downed American pilots and saving U.S. troops unwavered. And whereas when the United States withdrew from Laos, the Hmong faced harsh retribution from the communist government for their involvement in the American war effort, and many ultimately forced to flee their native land. And whereas on May 14, 1975, the last of the Hmong soldiers and their families fled Laos for the Nam Phong refugee camp in Thailand, later resettling in communities throughout the United States, including Michigan. And whereas Michigan is home to a significant number of Hmong refugees after providing political asylum and citizenship because of their unique contribution to American interests, And whereas it is recognized that the state of Michigan is home to a significant number of Hmong Americans and the importance of educating the general public about the historic contributions of our Hmong American residents, and whereas the diversity of the Hmong people adds much to the cultural fabric of our county, as they have shared their traditions, food, and practices of faith, and whereas today we join in reflecting on the tremendous heroism and sacrifice of our Hmong American community, and whereas we honor their commitment to leadership, establishment of businesses, and contribution to the economic growth of our state, now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of Commissioners, speaking for and on behalf of all county citizens as follows, that by these presents, the Macomb County Board of Commissioners hereby proclaims May 14th as Hmong American Day in Macomb County.
Very good. Congratulations. Very nice. Very good.
Thank you.
Did you want to say anything?
I do.
Please.
I always have something to say, as you know.
You've got 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
No, I'm just joking.
I know it's a long day. It's going to be short. So, good afternoon, County Commissioners. Thank you guys so much. My name is Dr. Allie Lee, and I am the president of the Michigan Hmong Women's Association. With me today is my vice president, Becky Moy, if you can come and stand next to me. So I am accepting this proclamation on behalf of the Hmong American community, and I wanted to thank all of the commissioners for recognizing May 14th as a Hmong American Day. So according to the U.S. Census Bureau, there are about 330,000 Hmongs all across the country today, and about 10,000 of those live in Michigan. We have about 10,000 in Michigan, and most of us are concentrated right here in Macomb County. Macomb is also where I reside, and Macomb County is where we have our very first elected official, Commissioner Mai Hyung, and we are very proud to have her as part of your commission. I am happy that Hmong Americans are being remembered on May 14th, which is the day that the CIA pulled out of the secret war in Laos. Our people fought very hard during that war. And as I accept this proclamation and I reflect back on the history of my people during the secret war, there is one thing that comes to my mind. I realize that we are the definition of what a strong and true ally is. We were recruited by the CIA, and we did not know kind of where that alliance would lead us, but still we did not hesitate to help. We felt that the duty was ours, and we fought to the very end. And this is what a true ally means: someone who is truly devoted, someone who is vigorously supportive of a friend. So I am very proud to be Hmong American. I know that America is a better place because my ancestors, they sacrificed their lives to make this country a better place. We have Hmongs living today who are still alive, who survived the secret war. And one of the Vietnam veterans is my own father, Valor Lee, who is with me today. He served the very last King of Laos, King Sisavan Vatana.
Ellie, can we have him stand?
Yes, Dad. This is my father, Valor Lee. Thank you. So he served in the Royal Army for the last King of Laos, and then he also served General Vang Pao in the Special Guerrilla Unit, which is the unit that was recruited by the CIA during the secret war. There are several people here with me today. I ask that all of our veterans please stand, not just my dad, all of you, so that the Macomb Commissioners can see who the war heroes are. Thank you so much. You can sit. So I want you guys to know, my veterans, that on May 14th, I want you to know that we honor you, we salute you, and we are grateful for the sacrifices that you made for this country and for our people. And thank you again for this proclamation. Thank you, County Commissioners.
Thank you. On behalf of the families of the U.S. servicemen that you rescued and served and saved the lives of in theater, It's appreciated. Your service was untold for many years until recent times, and I want to thank you again for the service you did to our country and to our men and women in theater who may not have made it back without you and the service that made it you and your community. So we appreciate you. Thank you so much, and God bless you, and we're glad to have you part of the team. Thank you. Proclamation number 16B, proclamation declaring the first Friday of June is National Gun Awareness. What's that? Oh, we did? Please vote on the first one. Trying to move us along. Forgive me.
Okay, keep doing it.
Motion passes 12-0.
All right, 16B.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I make a motion to do 16B, C, and D together.
Yeah, that's why we have you around, Commissioner Kraft. Thank you so much. Any discussion on anyone wish them separated and debated? Seeing none, please vote. Thank you.
Whoops, motion passes 12-0. 11-0, I'm sorry.
All right.
12-0.
Now let's go back up to our previous agenda item, which was item 9 of department presentations, a 9A, an amendment for the 2022 BOC meeting calendar as amended.
Matuzik moves.
Any discussion on that item? Please vote.
Motion passes 12-0.
All right, thank you. Item 10, Health Department Service Community Recommendations, item 10A through 10C. Can I get a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Any discussion on those items? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion passes 12-0.
Thank you. Item 11, Records and Public Safety Committee Recommendations. Item 11A, Budget Amendment for Community Corrections. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Any discussion on that item? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion passes 12-0.
Item 12, items 12A through 12D, Internal Service Committee Recommendations.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Any discussions on any of those items? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion passes 12-0.
Very good, thank you. Item 13, A, FY 2023 Budget Review Calendar and Supplemental Worksheets. Need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Support.
Discussion on that item? Please vote.
Motion passes 12-0.
Item 14, Public Services Committee Recommendations, item 14A through 14R.
Support Kleinfeld.
Is there any items that wish to be pulled out of there? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion passes 12-0.
Item 15A, Settlement U.S. District Court, case number 15 CV 10924, Stephen Howe versus Macomb County et al. And John Chapka, Corporate Counsel. I need a motion to concur.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Any discussion of that item? Seeing none, please vote. Item 17, public participation. Anyone from the public wish to be heard on any item that they would wish to talk about? Anyone from the public wish to be heard? Anyone from the public? Seeing no one from public participation, will close that. Item 18, commissioner comments. Any commissioner comments? Commissioner Kleinfeld?
Every time that there is a call the question, there seems to be either confusion or a debate. Not necessarily Chair Brown. It usually is Commissioner Romano that calls the question. But when it happens, no matter who's sitting as the chair, it usually kind of throws a little confusion into things. Call the question is very simple. Everything's supposed to stop and you just take a vote, not on the agenda item, but on whether or not the question is being called. And if that passes, then you move to the agenda item. Just for the record, I would have voted no on Commissioner Romano's call to question because there was only one more speaker and it was Commissioner Romano. But once he does that, and he doesn't have to get in line to do that, it's a procedural motion. Once he does that, everything is supposed to stop. And a roll call is supposed to be taken. There is no debate on a call to question, just so you guys know. And we can vote no and let the commissioners continue to talk. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. And I was being kind to the commissioner because I recognized Commissioner VanSyckel before he said that, but I was being kind and let him recognize that because I wanted Commissioner VanSyckel or Don to speak, and but out of the goodness of my heart, I allowed him to go forward, but I recognize that. Thank you.
That's what you get for being kind.
That's all right. And I even lost the vote on that one, too. My words might have made the difference to somebody. Thank you. Anyone else have any more comments? Commissioner Song?
Commissioner Matuzek with Macomb.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to point out that in your mailbox were the older American, yeah, I know. I'm always going to say older American. I can't help it. I don't know why. That one, the one that our colleague is holding up with the points that people are working on this year. I hope people will actually take a minute to read that, and I hope that our department heads will bring us budget items that will further help people stay in their homes. I think that's really important. The other thing I want to say is I really like having all these meetings in 1 week because when it comes to the full board meeting, I can actually remember what we talked about at all those committees, and so it reduces questions. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
You. Commissioner Matuzek held a good meeting this week with the Older Americans Advisory Committee, and there was something significant that happened there this week because the Senior Services Department came and presented, and this is a sign of the times because in the old days, the executive's office wouldn't have brought them forward because they had a principal disagreement on our ability to even form that committee. In fact, we went to court over it. We won, but nonetheless, but as a result, there were some hard feelings, and they never brought them forward to this committee. They did that, and that's a sign of the times. It's
for the first
there's
time
more goodwill.
For the first time in 3 years, someone from our actual Department of Senior Services came to speak and report on what they do in front of our committee. I took that to be a major victory on our part. So
well, it's a credit to you and the whole board for the cooperative attitude we've developed on most things, not everything. There's certainly disagreements, but but we're working together, and that's what's important. So thank you so much for Commissioner Matuzek for a good job as well. Excellent meeting. I heard a lot of good things about it. So anyone else? I don't have any. Jeff, okay.
Wait, I'm
when do I see all these details?
Are we going down the list?
I'm always on this commissioner comments. I never see the details.
Details, but at the bottom.
Yeah. Commissioner Farrington?
No. Song Farrington's in it.
Well, all right.
Thanks,
Commissioner
Farrington.
Song.
Appreciate you looking out for me. So we had a very large group this morning, about 50, 60 of us from the Hmong community, and as you saw, it was a much smaller group here just because we had a very long day. I actually carpooled and took a lot of the elderly to Lansing, and so we spent the day at the Capitol, had a chance to go on the floor, and Rep. Lori Stone offered her tribute And so this was, a really big deal. I appreciate all of your support for this proclamation and recognizing Hmong Americans in our community, because this was the first time in the past 46 years of our history that we had any sort of engagement with the community, and them, stepping foot in our chambers and at the state capitol was a really huge deal. And for me, it's about, encouraging civic engagement and making sure that we include the voices of all communities. So I appreciate it so much to all of you guys for being kind and welcoming and just so supportive. It means a lot to me as well. And I also wanted to introduce my husband, Adam, for those of you who have not met him. And he is the backbone of our family. As you can see, we've got 4 little ones, and I wouldn't be able to do any of this without his support. So I just want to say thank you to him as well.
We've got candy in the front office if they want some.
They do, yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Song. Commissioner Farrington.
Thank you, Chair. Just 2 things. Commissioner Matusek brought up about the condensed work week. I know there was discussion about doing that for the full summer. What's the status of that?
For it.
No, we voted on the financial. No. Oh. All right, there you go. Yeah, you can tell I was drifty at some point. Second thing, I mentioned it to Adriana, but really for anyone, I suggested we record the votes of the committees. Like if something passes 11-2, put the vote and who were the 2 dissenters, so then when we do have the full board, we can remember how we voted on some of these. I know we do that at the state, and it's extremely helpful. So, so that's my suggestion for staff. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good suggestion, Commissioner Farrington. Commissioner Zinner.
Thank you, Chair. I was hoping. I know there was a special person you had stand up, but the man in the corner, wasn't that a very special man also? That was, I think, a general. Wasn't he a general? Anyway, he's related to he was related to but Don and I think Michelle, maybe there was another commissioner, went to the Hmong event a year ago in the summer. It was warm weather. It was chilly under where we were, but anyway, it was Kleinfeld. That's who I was standing next to. I knew there was somebody. Thank you. We were together, and it was just a lovely event. And somebody explained to us that gentleman was such a great fighter, and he was such a pain to the communist that they were all looking for him. Everyone wanted to get him. They wanted him gone. He had to hide in the jungle for 5 years. I think it was 5 years, right? And this gentleman I was so engrossed in hearing about how great he was. And he's a lovely gentleman to meet. Don and I got to speak with him a little after we left. I don't know how much English we were talking.
So
I think
he was a major. He was a major.
Yes, yeah. I remember he was, and he's just a lovely man. And I got to hear of his history, and it was just incredible. It was just a wonderful.
Yeah, and it's those stories are so true. Like even my family hid in the jungles for about 4 years. You're talking about trekking by foot from North Laos down to southern Laos and literally swimming across the Mekong River into Thailand, and it took that many years. And so till this day, my uncle who you're talking about, it cannot go back to Laos because it just wouldn't be safe.
Well, I'm glad he's here, and praise God for him. He's a great man. Thank you.
That was a good day. Unfortunately, I couldn't eat any of the food because there were so many people in the line. I didn't have time, and I'm going to get back there maybe and get there early.
I'll bring you a plate next week.
Thank you very much. I see no one else on the list of speakers before me. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Please vote. Thank you, Commissioners. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Take care.